Increasingly, the dream of owning your home.
People won't be made homeless through no fault of their own.
Homelessness, one of the biggest pressures that you face.
Do you ever feel like no matter how hard you work, you're still falling behind? Like your paycheck disappears the moment it arrives? If you're living in the UK right now, you're not imagining things. Life has never been this expensive, this stressful, and this uncertain. Once, the UK was seen as a place of stability, opportunity, and prosperity. Today, it's a country where working-class people can barely afford to live. Young professionals are giving up on home ownership, and even middle-class families are drowning in costs. So, what went wrong? How did the UK reach this breaking point? And most importantly, can anything be done to fix it? This is why living in the UK has become impossible. If it feels like everything is getting more expensive, that's because it is.
The prices in the shops have really gone horrendous. Because we used to go and buy 3 for 10 or buy in bulk and fill the little chest freezer out there for me, like me main meals. But now, there's no offers on. The freezer's empty.
It is. The UK is facing one of the worst cost of living crises in modern history. Let's start with the basics. Food. A weekly grocery shop that used to cost £50 now costs £80 or more. A single block of cheese, £5. A pack of butter, £4. And forget about fresh meat or fish. Prices have skyrocketed, forcing families to cut back on essentials. The result? Food banks across the country are overwhelmed, with millions of people relying on them just to eat.
30 people ask for toilet paper. Some people, it's the first thing that, when you say, just ask them for their voucher number and their name, and the first thing they say is, I need toilet paper. More than anything else. And it's just, yeah.
Then there's energy bills. In the past 2 years, heating and electricity costs have doubled, pushing even middle-class families into fuel poverty. In winter, people are choosing between turning on their heating or wrapping themselves in blankets.
I think last winter, so January time, it was -2. It was freezing, like I had him wrapped in everything, and my gas cut off. I'd gone over the emergency credit.
Some pensioners are sitting in shopping malls all day just to stay warm. Transportation costs have also surged. Train fares have risen by over 40% in the last decade, making commuting an expensive burden. Even driving is unaffordable. Petrol prices remain high, and car insurance is at record levels. But here's the real problem. Wages haven't kept up. The UK's inflation rate has outpaced salary growth, meaning that, in real terms, people are earning less than they did a decade ago. Even professionals, teachers, nurses, engineers are struggling to maintain their standard of living. And it's not just working-class families suffering. The middle class is being crushed, and even those who once felt financially secure are now feeling the squeeze.
I've never ever experienced anything like this, and I have been a single parent. I did bring 2 kids up on my own for a lot of years, and I have never ever been this badly off, ever. Because there's just no hope, none. Every single thing has gone up.
So, how did we get here? A mix of economic mismanagement, global inflation, Brexit-related supply chain disruptions, and corporate profiteering have created a perfect storm of rising costs. And the government's response? Tax hikes, interest rate rises, and empty promises. The truth is, the UK is becoming unaffordable for millions. And if you think things are bad now, wait until we talk about housing. Because finding an affordable place to live has become nearly impossible.
Everyone wants a decent place to live, and one that doesn't eat up all their income. But a home you can afford seems increasingly hard to find. Mortgage payments are rising for millions as people come off fixed deals. Rents are going up too. Properties for rent snapped up within minutes, and social housing lists that can be as long as a decade.
If you're trying to rent or buy a home in the UK right now, you already know. It's a disaster.
This is a direct result of the failure to build enough genuinely affordable social rented homes where rents are tied to local incomes. Because By not building those, what we've seen is that the private rented sector has doubled in size in the last 20 years. And that means that renters have nowhere to go and they just are pitted against one another at trying to outbid one another for a home.
Let's start with renting. Just a few years ago, you could find a decent one-bedroom flat in London for around £1,200 per month. Today, you'll be lucky to find anything under £2,000. And it's not just London. Rents have skyrocketed across the country. In Manchester, Bristol, and even smaller cities, landlords are hiking prices beyond what most people can afford. For many, rent is now consuming over 50% of their income, leaving little left for food, bills, or savings. The situation is so bad that more people are being forced into house shares well into their 30s and 40s. And for those who can't afford rent at all, homelessness is on the rise, with thousands sleeping in temporary accommodation or even on the streets. And buying a home? That dream is dead for most people. The average house price in the UK is now £288,000, meaning you'd need to earn at least £60,000 a year to even qualify for a mortgage. In London, that number jumps to over £700,000, making home ownership completely out of reach for most first-time buyers. Why is this happening? For decades, the UK hasn't built enough homes to keep up with demand. Add in foreign investors buying properties, landlords snapping up houses for Airbnbs, and a mortgage crisis caused by rising interest rates. And it's clear, housing is now a luxury, not a basic necessity. And the government's response? Useless schemes like Help to Buy, which only inflate prices further, and half-hearted promises to build new homes that never materialize. So where are people supposed to live? Some are moving back in with parents well into their 30s. Others are leaving the country altogether.
UK might be losing its competitive edge. A lot of people have left to Portugal, to Spain, where it's nice and sunny, better than in the UK, and flats are cheaper over there too.
But for those who stay, the housing crisis is only getting worse. And with rising rents and soaring costs, what about wages? Surely people are earning enough to keep up. Not even close. It's one thing for prices to go up, but when wages don't rise with them, survival becomes impossible. And that's exactly what's happening in the UK. Over the past decade, real wages, what your salary is worth after inflation, have barely moved. In fact, for many workers, they've gone backward. While the cost of living has exploded, paychecks have stagnated, leaving millions struggling to keep up.
1.7 million fewer people in absolute poverty. We heard Mel Stride list a whole raft of policies, cost of living payments, increasing to the national living wage. He says that we're trying to tackle inflation and that will make all of these people better off.
Let's look at the numbers. The average salary increase in the UK has been around 3–4% per year, but inflation has been as high as 11%. That means that, even with a raise, most people are poorer than they were last year. But it gets worse. Zero-hour contracts, gig work, and short-term employment have made job security a thing of the past. Over 3.9 million people in the UK work unstable jobs with unpredictable hours. This means one bad month, one unexpected bill, or one missed paycheck can push people into debt or homelessness. And what about key workers? Nurses, teachers, paramedics, people who keep the country running. Their wages have been frozen or barely increased for over a decade.
Could tensions be lowering in the UK after months of labour strikes? Well, the British government said Tuesday it will implement a new pay deal covering more than 1 million nurses after a majority of unions voted for the offer. However, other nursing unions have rejected the deal, while teachers' unions are talking about ratcheting up their walkouts this year.
The government needs to listen. It's just not good enough. We can't let this continue. We can't, we shouldn't have to keep going on strike to make a government listen. The situation is bad. They need to come to the table. They need to listen to people who know what they're talking about.
Many of them are turning to food banks, and some are even leaving the UK for better pay elsewhere.
I think with the food we give every week, we cannot cover a week for a family, and every week there is people asking for different items we just can't provide.
Strikes have erupted across the country. Train drivers, postal workers, all demanding fair wages just to survive. But rather than fixing the problem, the government is cracking down on protests, making it harder for workers to fight for better pay.
Cost of transport is more expensive each year. My salary is going down with inflation going up. Food bills are rising. Our weekly food bill has more than doubled in the last year, and it's just no longer affordable.
So if wages aren't rising and costs are spiraling, what's left? Government support? Benefits? The truth is, those safety nets have been shredded. And while the working class is drowning, the government has shifted the blame to immigration. But is immigration really to blame for the UK's decline? Or is it just another convenient scapegoat? If you listen to politicians and the media, they'll tell you that immigration is one of the biggest reasons for the UK's problems. They blame overcrowded schools, the struggling National Health Service, and the housing crisis on an influx of migrants. But is this really the full story? Let's look at the facts. Over the past few years, the UK has seen record high immigration numbers. In 2022 alone, over 1.2 million people moved to the UK, one of the largest migration surges in modern history. The government has actively encouraged this, bringing in workers to fill labour shortages, especially in healthcare, hospitality, and construction. But here's the problem. While immigration has increased, the UK hasn't built enough homes, funded enough schools, or expanded the National Health Service to keep up with the growing population. The result? More people fighting over fewer resources. The housing crisis? Not the fault of immigrants, but a failure of government policy. The National Health Service being overwhelmed. A result of years of underfunding, not just an increase in demand. And yet, public opinion has shifted. Just a few years ago, most Brits supported immigration. But now, 58% say the UK is taking in too many people. Far-right groups are gaining traction, and anti-immigrant sentiment is growing. The government is taking advantage of this, introducing harsh new laws to crack down on asylum seekers and legal migrants. But let's be real. Blaming immigrants is a distraction. The real culprits? Decades of poor planning, underinvestment, and economic mismanagement. Immigration has exposed the cracks in the system, but it didn't create them. The question is, why hasn't the government done anything to fix these issues? Why does every Prime Minister promise change, only for things to keep getting worse? Let's talk about political chaos and government failures. The UK isn't just suffering from a cost of living crisis, it's suffering from a leadership crisis. In the past 7 years, the country has had 5 Prime Ministers: Theresa May, Boris Johnson, Liz Truss, Rishi Sunak. Each one promising solutions, each one leaving the country worse off than before. And let's not forget Liz Truss's disastrous 49-day premiership, which sent the economy into a tailspin and tanked the value of the pound overnight. But it's not just about leadership changes. It's about decades of failed policies. Austerity measures since 2010 have cut funding for public services, leaving the National Health Service, schools, and local councils struggling. Brexit, sold as a way to take back control, has instead crippled trade, increased labour shortages, and worsened inflation. Tax hikes and spending cuts have made life harder for ordinary people, while corporations and the ultra-rich keep getting richer. And when the people demand change, they're ignored. Public sector workers are striking for better pay. The government labels them selfish. Millions are calling for rent controls. Nothing happens. Businesses are begging for better economic policies. Instead, they get more instability. And what is the government's response to this chaos? Distraction tactics. They blame immigration for the housing crisis. They blame unions for wage stagnation. They blame Russia for energy costs. The truth is, the government has no real plan to fix the UK's decline. They're just buying time until the next election, hoping people will forget the damage they've done.
We've seen the scale of this bill increase coming and said, we're not just going to stand by, we're going to stand up for the British people. And the proposals today for an extra 2.7 million families to get the warm homes discount is a sign of our determination to act.
So, is there any hope left? Or is the UK doomed to keep getting worse? Right now, millions of people are trapped, stuck in low-paying jobs, drowning in high rents, and unable to save for the future. But solutions do exist. The question is whether the government is willing to act. Here's what could help. Housing reform. The government could build more affordable homes, introduce stricter rent controls, and crack down on landlords exploiting the market. But so far, politicians have been more interested in protecting investors than helping tenants. Wage increases. If salaries kept up with inflation, fewer people would be struggling. Raising the minimum wage to a true living wage could make a massive difference. Energy and food price caps. Other European countries have taken stronger measures to regulate prices. Why hasn't the UK? Government intervention could stop corporations from profiteering off the crisis. Better economic policies. Instead of endless tax breaks for the rich, the government could invest in infrastructure, healthcare, and education. Things that actually help people. But here's the reality. None of this will happen without political pressure. Right now, the UK is at a crossroads. People are fed up, and elections are coming. Will the next government fix the mess, or will history repeat itself?
The problem is, the cost of heating and lighting our homes is still determined by the price of gas, and that is set on international markets. Ofgem thinks that shifting moods on those international markets probably account for more than 3/4 of today's increase in bills. If we can't control those prices, what's the solution?
For many, staying in the UK no longer feels like an option. If things don't change soon, more and more Brits will be asking the same question. Should I stay or should I leave? So what do you think? Is the UK still a place where you can build a future, or has it become unlivable? Are you staying and fighting for change, or are you thinking about leaving? Let me know in the comments. I read them all. If you found this video eye-opening, do me a favor, hit that subscribe button. It's completely free, and it helps push this video to more people who need to see it. And if you're looking for more deep dives into global issues, check out one of these videos next.